Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this workshop this morning. I hope you are all safe and well. Really looking forward to this session today. I've got Miranda from Karbon and Joe David from Nethos on the workshop with us. I absolutely love these type of sessions. I love hearing from accountants, and Joe has been kind enough to give us a bit of his time and actually show us how he's using Karbon in his practice and some of the challenges and benefits, and it should be a really insightful session, so I'm really looking forward to this. How we're going to run today's session, we're just going to kick things off by doing some quick introductions. I will we'll ask Joe some questions, and to give you guys some context, we'll just ask Joe a bit of background and a bit of history to his practice, just so you're familiar with when we're talking about numbers of employees and some of the challenges that you might be able to relate to when implementing software into the firm. We're then going to look into why Joe chose Karbon as a product, and what he saw in Karbon that made him go in that direction. We're also then going to ask some questions around the project. So what were some of the challenges? What did the implementation look like? And what advice Joe would give to anyone who is implementing Karbon as a product, or any software system for that matter. And then Joe has been kind enough to show us take us into Karbon itself, to show us how he's using it in his practice. So should be a really great session. Really looking forward to it. So Miranda, do you mind if I just ask you to introduce yourself quickly to the group?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Miranda Kendall. I am the MD at Karbon. I've been with Karbon now for nearly 4 months, so I still feel fairly new. And I've been brought on to build a team here in the UK to help support our existing clients, such as Joe, and also any new prospects that are looking to come across to our platform. Brilliant.
Thanks, Miranda. And Joe?
Yeah, hi. So, as Dan said, I'm Joe from Nethos. We're based in Cheltenham. Our practice is there's 10 of us team-wise. We've got a couple hundred clients, and yeah, we've grown from about 7 years from 0 clients up to 200. So a nice growth trajectory, and Karbon has fit really nicely into that process. We don't really specialize as such, although Dan and others on this may know that we are beginning to specialize in a particular area, but as Nethos, we don't particularly specialize. We have clients all across different industries and whatnot, and size and everything. But our big focus is around data, getting clients the data they need to help them grow their business. And Karbon, I'm a big advocate of being able to automate a lot of the stuff that takes the time that doesn't need to take time, and then spending the time on the really important stuff. And Karbon helps us to do that. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Joe. Thanks, Miranda. The Q&A box and chat box are open, guys. So if anybody has any questions for Joe or Miranda as we go through today's session, please fire those in there, and I'll do my best to feed those into Joe and Miranda. Joe and Miranda, are you happy to questions as we go?
Yeah, I've answered one already. It was just whether it's something, if it was going to be recorded and sent out, and I've just said yes.
Brilliant, great, thanks so much. I think it just makes the session a bit more interactive if we're answering questions as we go, which is great. So Joe, do you mind if we kind of kick things off? You giving us a bit more history into Nethos as a practice, kind of how long you've been going, number of employees, and what your kind of core technology stack is in the business, just to give people some flavour and some context to the discussion today.
Yeah, of course. So as I briefly said a second ago, so we've been going about seven or so years. My background, so I didn't come through the traditional practice route. My background was industry, management, accounting, FD type work. And without going too much into the boring detail, I wanted to run a business of my own, but didn't know how. And my main thing was, all I know is accounting, so that better be what I get into type thing. And it kind of just grew quite a lot from there. A lot of hard work and a lot of determination, but we have managed to grow a fairly decent sized practice from that. So like I say, a couple hundred clients, 10 members of staff, ranging from apprentices doing bookkeeping, up to kind of like a practice manager, and we've also got a marketing person as well now. So really kind of trying to drive the business forward. Pretty big aspirations, as Dan knows, I think, for the business, for myself, for the brand that we're trying to achieve. So yeah, so client wise, like I say, we don't specialize. We are very generic, but really what we want is growing businesses, entrepreneurial type, business owners that want to understand, that want more. We're not very good at year end, once a year, here's a box of paperwork type. That's just not what we're about. We're 100% zero. We've got 98%, I would say, of our clients on receipt bank. So there's just a couple of stragglers that we're now at the point where we might be telling them that it's not going to work if they're not going to kind of move on to receipt bank, because they're now like outside of the norm, if you know what I mean. They're making our lives much difficult. So that's kind of like where we are, is that we're a huge like cloud advocate, if you like, and if you like, that's where Karbon came in. That we wanted we were using, going on a bit, but we were using other situations that weren't fitting with our brand. So that's where Karbon kind of came in.
Joe, were you born a cloud practice? So did you start from day one on Xero and Receipt Bank, or have you gone through some sort of transformation?
We didn't start on Receipt Bank, but we started on Xero/Sage. I'm a tech geek myself, quite happy to admit that. I love all things tech and all things new and shiny. So we've always been like tech focused because of me as an individual, but we had to build a practice at the time that I felt would stack up with the other practices out there, and a lot of businesses 7-8 years ago were using Sage. So whilst we were like Xero from day one, not all of our clients obviously were on Xero. So there had to be a bit of a transformation. In terms of Receipt Bank, we moved on to that probably about 18 months into the business, and it's kind of a typical bringing in a new bit of software that's going to revolutionize the business. The people that we had in the business at the time were like, this will take us longer, it'll be more difficult, it'll be more fiddly, it won't do this, it won't do that. So that kind of, and again, fits quite nicely with Karbon, because there were things like that with Karbon that you kind of have to work through, and eventually it becomes your day-to-day, and everyone kind of loves it.
And how did you get all of your clients using Receipt Bank? Like, one of the things I always hear from accountants is, how do we get the clients to do it? They won't listen to us. They just don't do it. Like, how did you get, like, 98% is quite high. How did you get everyone bought into that?
Two ways. First of all, we are attracting the type of business that naturally that would fit into that tech kind of space, because we're a very young team, and we're a very kind of like tech focused team, and therefore naturally the types of clients that we're bringing on board are that way inclined. And I think the reason a lot of the time they're coming to us, because we're not an established, in for want of a better word, practice. I think a lot of the time people are coming to us because we aren't an established practice, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing. And the second thing was COVID helped quite a lot, because we kind of then said, look, we're now in a pandemic, we now can't take your paperwork as easily. You better start using this Receipt Bank thing. And other people came to us and said, oh, that Receipt Bank you've been banging on about for ages, should we have a look at that? And we did a few training videos, and we offer it free, which helps to clients. So we take the hit as a practice cost, if you like, and then we don't recharge that cost onto the client. So yeah. Okay,
great. Okay, so 3-4 years ago, Joe, 5 years ago even, when in my days at Xero, the one question that would constantly come up in meetings that I had was, are there any good practice management systems out there? What's everyone using for practice management? And at that time, I didn't really have an answer. Like, Xero had their own one that they were running, and then we started to see this kind of surgence of practice management systems kind of come to market all around the same time, I think. Walk me through kind of before Karbon, what you're doing and how you kind of analyze the market, and what led you down the Karbon direction, because you're someone, as well as some other accountants I'm very close to, you're someone I really admire from a technology digital standpoint, And if you tell me that a product's really good, then that makes me feel even more comfortable. So like, walk me through that kind of decision-making process.
Can I,
go on.
Sorry, just before you do that, just to close off your Receipt Bank, there's a question that's come through. It just says, is there a reason you use Receipt Bank rather than HubDoc? Just very quickly.
Personally, I think Receipt Bank's a better product. I won't beat around the bush. That's my opinion. I did a call the other day with somebody, and we talked about this kind of the same sort of thing. And I think it's each their own. Like, if you find, I'm going to tell you why I think Karbon's amazing today, but if you're using another system, you might find that amazing. So, the Karbon works perfectly for me. Receipt Bank works perfectly for me. So yeah, for us, and again, we've got 98% of our clients on Receipt Bank. So you try and get all those on HubDoc after you've been banging on about how amazing Receipt Bank is for the last 2 years. It kind of derails that process. So that's the honest answer from me.
Thanks, Joe. You can now answer Dan's question.
Thanks very much. And it's funny because of all the things of us being like a digital practice and a cloud-based practice management has always been the thing that has been really, really, really challenging to get right. So that's been the one thing for years and years and years, really, until we got onto Karbon that was never really cloud-based. So we managed it on spreadsheets. And the girls are still a bit attached. The girls that do the VAT returns and annual accounts in the office, they're still a bit attached to one of these spreadsheets that they've been using for so long. But and we did use XPM, Zero Practice Manager, for a while because it was free. So it allowed us to track client static data, VAT number, filing dates and things like that. And also we do track time, which I'll come on to when we come on to onto Karbon in a minute. So we used it for that, but that was all we used it for. We never used Practice Manager to schedule work, to plan what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and all that sort of stuff. It was all done off this one spreadsheet, and we use Office 365 as our kind of tool. And the amount of times that this spreadsheet would get corrupted, and one person would be in it, but because their internet drops out, for example, in that moment, another person was able to get in it, and then all of a sudden we've got two people in a file that's corrupted, and it just caused major problems. So so that's why we were kind of driven, if you like, to finding a solution. And for me, I wasn't actively looking for like Karbon, if that makes sense. I was looking for a solution that ticked a load of boxes, and I just stumbled across Karbon, and that's where it kind of, the journey, if you like, started. So we didn't really have a proper client relationship management. We really didn't have a proper sales pipeline situation. It was all done in here. Again, as a growing business, it is quite a lot of the time it is on the owner. The owner is the one that's got all the information and the one that's got it all up here, but that can't, as you grow, and that's the other thing, we started to bring on more staff. We started to have people that work remotely if they needed to, and then all of a sudden we went, well, I was out in meetings or what have you, and all of a sudden this information that was up here needed to be in the office. So that's where the kind of systemization of it came, really, was like everything was like dotted around 4 or 5 different systems, and it was the one really crucial part of our business that was completely the opposite of every other part of our business, in terms of every other part was automated and cloud-based and all this stuff, and the practice management side was clunky and old and horrible.
Ooh, hi Miranda, you're on mute.
Sorry, just a question that's come in as you're talking about your choice for Karbon, but why Karbon instead of Iris and Digita? So
we didn't go to every single practice management software out there and try and find the best one, in inverted commas, because they all do different things in different ways at different times. What we found was, we looked at, and we always wanted to be 100%, like I say, cloud-based, and the next bit of software that we were going to introduce for that part of the business was always going to be integrated within other solutions. So for me, when we saw Karbon, and we looked at a couple of others, but when we saw Karbon and what Karbon could do for us, we didn't need to look at an Iris or a Digita. because it did everything that we needed it to do. And, you know, I'm also a bit of a believer around, and, you know, people might argue with me about this, given that Xero are now a huge organization, but I also don't like the corporates, and I don't like the way the corporates operate. So moving away from an Iris or a Digital was also like a bit of me saying, look, I want to stick to the nimble, positive, forward-thinking software like Karbon and whatnot.
When you say it ticked all the boxes for you, Joe, what would you say are the highlights for the people on the call that Karbon does for you?
So we wanted a central communication tool for the team. So we wanted to be able to talk to each other, which I've got some screens and stuff to show people in a bit what I mean by that. We wanted to be able to, you know, again, we used Teams, we used Slack, we used you know, Zoom or whatever, and all these different things, and we were just like, this is just an absolute nightmare. Like, we just want it to be in one easy place, and so that was really important. Having the email triage system, I think, is hugely underestimated, and I think when you have that, if you were to use something like Karbon, you will literally not look back. We wanted the workflow management. So that was really important. We wanted to be able to see on the screen. And again, you know, I'll talk about that in a sec. We wanted to see workflow management on one screen. We wanted to be able to drag and drop, move things around. So that was really important. And we wanted, the other side of the workflow management is we wanted templates. So we wanted, this is the process you need to go through in order to complete this piece of work. And we wanted elements of that to be automated. So if I've completed a piece of work that then needs to go on to, you know, next member of staff, that the automating part of Karbon will say, you've done your bit, Joe, now it needs to go to Bob or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, they were the kind of, like, it was all about that collaboration and integration together.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much, Joe. And from the point of saying, right, let's move with Karbon, what did the kind of implementation, how long did the transition take, or the project take, from start to finish? Or I'm guessing it's like an ongoing.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
Again, I think it's really important that we, you know, set some context, because often you think you can get these projects done relatively quickly and over the line, and actually in reality it can be further from the truth. So walk us through what the project plan looked like, the transition time, and walk us through some of that.
Yeah, and just on that point you just made, you know, I don't know if, you know, anyone saw, but I was messaged on someone on LinkedIn last night and about HubSpot, and I was saying that I was trialing it out, and I said, any tips? And someone came back, Trent McLaren, who used to be at PI, he came back and said, my top tip is invest the time into it. And like, if you do that, you'll get, it's an unbelievable system. If you invest the time into it, you'll get out of it what you want. And I was like, you've actually hit the nail on the head there, because that's what in the cloud-based app platform-y type world, we are like, we're too quick to go, here's a great new shiny thing, amazing, let's use it, and then we use it, and then we don't use it properly, and then all of a sudden it falls away. Yeah. So what I wanted to make sure was that we didn't do that with Karbon. You know, there's a cost to it. It's not the cheapest system in the world. Hope you don't mind me saying, Miranda. But it was worth the investment for us, as long as we put the time into it. So that was, you know, just to start that point, that was really key for us, was that we did really invest the time. So we spent a lot of time like planning how it would look. So we trialed it internally with 3 members of the team initially. You know, myself and 2 others, we used some of the features. We tried to think, how would this work? How would that work? Before we then we introduced a couple more people. So then we went to say 5 people on it. And again, there was different members of the team in different roles. So they could then go, oh, this doesn't work. Why doesn't that work? And, you know, so eventually when we got to the whole team, it kind of had a broad spectrum. But the other thing is, like, Karbon's support generally has just been like unbelievable. And it, you know, very helpful now to have Miranda in the UK, because we've been dealing with the US for a lot of the time, which is fine, but it just means the times of getting those calls in are not always that simple. And our practice manager's part-time, so she finishes at 3 to go and get her kids, so she couldn't really do calls at 5 o'clock. So it was quite challenging, but you know, they've done an unbelievable amount of work in the background as well. So we would put, you know, they'd give us a spreadsheet and say, like, what do you want on your system, for example? And we would say, we want this client to have this data over here. and then we'd put all our clients on the list, all the data in there, and they would go in the background and kind of import it all in. But the key for us was like, we mapped out where we needed to be. And then we spoke to Karbon and said, how much of this can you do for us? And how much of this do we need to do? And then eventually, you know, obviously we got to a point that the other side to that is Karbon then came to us probably about 6-9 months ago and said, we've done like a, what's the word, like a review of your account, and we've got some suggestions to optimize your account. And they were like, you know, we can see that you, you know, you're using, I don't know, 50% of this thing, but we recommend you use 80% of it, for example, and how you could then use 80%. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that's really great, Miranda. That's brilliant. Like, you guys will also be seeing what other accountancy firms are doing, but to get that level of support where the software vendor is kind of looking at what you're doing in the product and coming to you, I mean, that is so proactive. That's really great.
And some of the
something just to add
that
is part of our ongoing, I guess, support from our customer success team, is that when we call them health checks, so we run that, see what's going on, how you're using it, and then obviously come in with them suggestions, and we do that on a regular basis with our clients.
And like my biggest frustration, if you like, with cloud and app firms and whatever, is they go, here's a 14-day trial, crack on, see how you get on. And you're kind of like, 14 days doesn't give me any time to do anything, because if you've got 14 days to spend on software, you know, what's going on with your business that you've got that spare time. So I say to a lot of people, like, I want more than 14 days, not because I want a load of free time, because I want to make sure it works. But the key ones that we use now have spent the time, and Karbon are an example of that, to make sure the software we're using is getting at, because otherwise we'll just get rid of it.
Yeah,
you know, it's costing us a few quid a month. Like if it's not working, we'll just get rid of it. So it makes complete sense. Like, you know, as accountants, we would make sure that our clients are happy, like, with what we're doing, that they understand what we're doing, that, you know, we've got all the information we need, so that when we come to file everything, we've got it all there. Like, we make that customer experience piece like perfect, if you like it, and that's what we want to do because we're so customer facing. And I think sometimes a lot of the apps forget that, and they go, oh yeah, but we've given you a great piece of kit, so, you know, that's our delivery to you. And I'm like, no, you've got to make sure that that works for us. And you know, Karbon aren't the only example of that. There's a couple of others that have been unbelievably supportive in that, and they're the ones we've stuck with. And the other ones we haven't.
Who would you say are those other apps that are doing
Pleo.
really well? Pleo, right? Okay.
Yeah. And to be honest,
sorry, Joe, what do Pleo do for people on the call?
Expense cards, mileage tracking, you know, kind of like personal business expenditure, but they're preloaded cards. So you know, stick $1,000 or whatever on a preloaded card. So all our team have Pleo cards. There's $1,000, say, on the company account, and they can use those cards to go and buy, you know, I don't know, just stuff for the office or postage or whatever. All links to zero. Receipt Bank in the early days were also very supportive, and very, very good at getting our clients on board. And Xavier have been similar. Obviously, they're now part of Receipt Bank, but, you know, again, they've been very similar in getting us on board. And also, I would say, as a new one, Connect4. So Andrew Jordan, who runs Connect4, used to be at Fathom, and Connect4 is like a meeting app, you know, basically like Zoom, but in their eyes much better. And they've been amazing as well. Like, we, you know, when we started trialing it, we found some major problems with it. We spoke to them, and within a day they fixed those problems, and now, you know, it works. So again, that isn't. And the last one I would say is Clarity. I think the guys at Clarity are unbelievable. Like, the way their support is and the way they're trying to help accountants, I think, is unbelievable. So they're the ones I would say that have really stuck with us as the kind of the best, if you like.
Good to hear. Yeah, good to hear. Yeah. I really like the guys at Clarity. I like what they're doing in terms of giving firms a framework on how to deliver advisory as a service, which I think is great, and they're good guys. Thanks for that answer, Joe. That was pretty epic. One of the points that I really like is the way that you phased Karbon into the practice, by starting off with 3 of you, then 5, and then kind of opening it up that way. And if I could give anyone on the call any advice when it comes to software implementation, when you're looking at your team, always start with the people that are up for it.
Yeah.
They then filter that back through the rest of the team, because you tend to find that the team will be split in three. There'll be those that are really up for change and up for adopting something new. You get the guys that are just kind of don't want anything to do with it, and they love the way that they love the software that they're using. Excuse me. Then you get the guys in the middle that are on the fence and can be persuaded by either the guys that are really up for it or the guys that don't want to know. So if you start with the guys that are up for it, their positivity from using the product hopefully filters through the rest of the firm, and when they're on lunch breaks, they kind of talk about it. And yeah, that would be my advice when it comes to getting the team bought into it.
Yeah, and just to finish on that, I would 100% would agree. But also, when you're talking to the team, as you know, and as they start bringing problems, you need to turn those problems into a positive solution, rather than going, yeah, that is a bit rubbish or whatever. You know, you really need to be like, yeah, okay, cool, but we'll reach out to these guys and we'll have a chat with them, or you know, whatever. But turn that negativity into positivity. It's like you say, as soon as you start having that negativity, you're going to really start hitting a lot of barriers.
Yeah. So that leads nicely on to my next question, Joe. So what mistakes did you make, and what challenges were there when rolling out Karbon or any software project for that matter?
Yeah, I think if we talk software generally for a second, I think the mistake we've made is doing what we just said not to do, which is like not, you know, seeing the shiny new thing and not implementing it properly. And we did a little bit of that with Xavier, for example. We didn't, you know, the person that we put as the kind of product champion, if you like. So we again, that's another point we should probably just quickly. So we have product champions. So when we're going to bring on a new, so at the moment we're implementing Connect 4. I've got a particular person that within the business that does a lot of the diary management stuff. So she is kind of leading that project as like the product champion. So she'll do all the, you know, the initial training, and, you know, because I'm sure people on this call are thinking, how on earth am I going to have time while running my business to do all of this and that and blah, blah, blah. That's where we use, like, say, product champions. So we had one for Pleo, Clarity, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that, but in this particular case with Xavier, the product champion wasn't really bought into, and that was, you know, that was a mistake I made, was that I put the right as in the right role to do it, but the wrong person for it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So she was kind of like heading up our compliance side of things, which was great, and that made her perfect for the Xavier stuff. But she was the wrong character because she was quite negative, and she's no longer with the business, and she therefore didn't give that, like you just said, that positivity, which meant that nobody really used it. She didn't follow up with Xavier. She didn't come, you know, all these bits and pieces. So the mistake I would say don't make is, might be the right role, but it might not be the right person. And sometimes you've got to go with the right person that we just talked about with that positive attitude. Apart from that, I think, you know, challenges was rushing in too quickly with some of it. You know, we rushed into a lot of automating messages, and our clients didn't like it because we didn't tell them that that's what we were doing. So we had a few that got a bit annoyed with us, that all of a sudden, because I talk about our business and I say we are 100% online, but face-to-face, if that makes sense. So like everything we do is online, and paperwork and all that jazz. But if you want to come and sit in front of us and you want to have a cup of tea or coffee or whatever and chat, we will do that. So we're online, but because I don't want to say we're online and then people think they can never talk to us. Do you know what I mean? So, but one of the mistakes we made was we automated all this email stuff going out, which again, I can show you briefly in a second on the actual work templates we've got. And clients were saying, well, hang on a second, you've just gone from talking to us to not talking to us. And we were, you know, we would get to the point where the accounts were due in a couple of months, and we'd be saying to the client, where's your paperwork? And they'd be like, you haven't asked for it. And we'd be like, yeah, we've been sending out these automated messages for 6 months, but nobody in the office picked up the phone. Nobody thought to themselves, they haven't sent it, so maybe we should follow up because the system's doing it for us. So that was a huge mistake we made, was that we allowed the automation to go too far. And so we've reined that in. The automation still goes out, but there's now a trigger that says, if you haven't had that by a particular point, you need to pick up the phone and you need to call them.
Right, okay. And where are those automated messages coming from?
I can show you in a second if you like, in the system, but they come out of the system themselves. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, before we dive into some of what you're doing, Joe, a couple of questions have come in, and maybe one for you, Miranda, as well. Does Karbon link into Xero? Joe?
No.
Right, okay. Right.
I might add a bit to that, Joe.
Yeah, would you mind
You're
adding-
going to. How are you working with it then, Joe?
So what the way we work is we use Practice Ignition as our proposal tool, and Practice Ignition fires the data into Karbon and also fires the data into Xero.
Okay.
So they're linked by a third party, if you like. The other option you could use is something like Zapier to make them connect, but there is no direct. Sorry for my short and sharp answer there, Miranda. But there is no direct link between Xero and Karbon, unless Miranda's going to tell us some breaking news.
I'm not. All I can tell you is that we are ready to go to do that, and we're waiting on Xero. But yeah, I've answered exactly what you've just said. So how we can link to it without the direct.
Go Proposal will do it as well for those that use Go
Yes.
Proposal.
Go Proposal, Practice Ignition, Zapier, pretty standard tools. If anybody wants any help with Zapier, reach out to me. I can make some introductions for you. It's a really important tool to be familiar with in kind of modern day accountancy firms. So 100%, if anyone needs to do any sessions on that, let me know.
Can I just add a really quick point as well? The other point to this is, why do you want it to link to Xero? And you need to make, because that's the other mistake a lot of people make, is they go, well, it has to link to this. And you're like, well, does it though? Or are you now putting a barrier in place that doesn't need to be in place? And I don't think you really need it to link to Xero in one sense, like in a really, like right now. So I would say, think about why you want it to integrate. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love it to integrate into Xero, and there's definitely things that we could do, but it doesn't cause us any major problems by it not. Does that make sense? So think about why you want it to and what problems you would get and how you could overcome those, rather than just going, it doesn't link, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer, Joe. Miranda, do you know if Karbon costs will be eligible for the Help to Grow digital scheme?
Oh, great question. Don't have the answer, but I will find out for you.
We'll get back to you on Neil. Thanks for the question. Does Karbon keep track of dates, i.e. when a job comes in and gets completed, as these don't seem visible?
Well, again, Miranda can answer from a system perspective if you want. Do you want to answer the system perspective and I'll tell you what we do after?
Yeah, so sorry. It does. There's an audit trail on the timeline of every work item that is created. There's also obviously a timeline if you look at the organisation within Karbon of exactly what conversation, what's happened when, tasks, etc. And also down at the individual level of the contact within that organisation.
Joe, without further ado,
yeah,
shall we dive in a little bit and kind of have a look at some of the functionality that you've got set up and how you're running it in your firm?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. Feel free to ask any questions. Feel free to ask any questions that anyone wants to ask while I'm showing this. Obviously, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't easily see the questions. So feel free to interrupt me, and if you want me to slow down, or if you want me to. Okay. This is going to be challenging to try and show you a system in the time that we've got, but I'll show you some basic stuff. So Karbon's kind of the way we work with it is it's split into kind of 3, if you like, sections. So we've got the triage section up here, which is where all our emails and any kind of comments, which will come onto any work assignments. So basically anything that we need to do or we need to be aware of as an individual will go into our triage. We've then got our kind of to-do list and work items, which is where we schedule all our work, where tasks from those work items will be put into our to-do list, individual team members, etc., which I'll show in a minute. And then you've got the contact section, which is kind of like the CRM bit that if you like. And what I found with Karbon is, because you can do it's very, very, very customizable. So whilst it doesn't have a built-in sales pipeline process, we've built our own, which isn't perfect, but actually does work really well for us. So you then don't need another system to do a sales pipeline, for example. So what I wanted to do first of all was show some of these points down here. I'm just going to put my eyes on Do Not Disturb. Cool. So I've done a couple of screenshots. They're a bit scruffy because I've tried to like cover up client confidentiality stuff. So apologies for the fact that they're scruffy. But so if I start on this note here, this one's not too bad. So this one actually quite conveniently came through this morning as we were kind of just prepping for this. I thought it was a really good example. So Leah's a member of my team, and Leah's had a call with a client, and she has made a note on Karbon to discuss that, to make a note of what she's discussed. And underneath that, she's put some points so that she can kind of work through those and do what needs to be done. But the key thing underneath that is she's then mentioned to me. So she said, at Joe David, how should I deal with the Pleo problem? Who is best to speak to? So I can then go, right, okay, so point one, this person's Pleo, for some reason he's not getting the code when he's logging in. So now I can now say to Leah, I'll speak to Pleo, or can you speak to Pleo, or whatever. And I can just reply, obviously it's a screenshot, but I can just reply by clicking this comment button here. And I can then reply to Leah straight back and say, at Leah, I'll speak to Pleo, or at Leah, here's the telephone number, or what have you. So I think that's one of the first simple parts of it, is that it allows us to communicate. And I'll show you a longer communication piece next, where we've actually had a longer conversation. But the point there is that's where your CRM in a way comes in, that you've tracked a client call. That's been tracked against the client. He's got a group of companies, so that's been tracked against the client group, as you can see up there. So if I was to click on that client group, it would then bring up all of their timeline, which again I'll show in a minute, and this call will be on there. So I'll show you that one in a second. This guy's a friend of mine, so he won't mind me showing his stuff. If I then look at a bit more of a communication piece, so this one here, so this guy has emailed us over and said, here's a dividend minute from their meeting, and he's just sent it. So Drew has sent to me this here. He's done a screenshot and he's pasted in the screenshot. So again, it doesn't just have to be comments, it can be images. And again, I'll show you a file that's been imported in a minute. And he's then put in here, I've posted this journal, is it correct? I've gone back to him and said, they've actually going to paid it, so it needs to go through the bank rather than the direct loan account. And he wants me to show him because he's not sure. So you can see there's a little bit of a back and forth kind of conversation there. And then finally, then on the communication side of things. So if we go to this one here, so this is an even longer one. So this is a work item. So I've been assigned to review the account. Sorry, I have assigned to somebody to review the accounts here. So I've assigned this to Leanne. So she has looked through working through the accounts, and then underneath that you can see, first of all, we've got an automator. So, and again, I appreciate this is quite quick, so apologies that I'm kind of rushing through it, but I'll quickly show you the automators in a second. But what this is, because I've assigned the work, or this work has been assigned to me here, it's automatically then said, right, this is now in progress because it's been assigned to Joe. I've then set a due date on it. And then when I have completed the work, I've completed my element and then needed to pass it on to the next person. I've then assigned that to Leanne to review. I've talked about this. Then she said that she's not comfortable with something. So then, we've had a little back and forth. And then also we've been able to, upload a file, just reading that comment. He's uploaded an Excel spreadsheet, and then he's put some actions after that. So as you can see, there's an easy way to communicate with each other. If I now wanted to say, at Leanne, for example, I will look at this today. And if I want to put a little, oops, I was going to put a smiley face just for the crack. So there we go. She's probably now going to get that and think, what's going on? Joe's being nice. So he's definitely doing something on a webinar. So we can communicate easily with each other. As I said, this is I'll be quick on this because there will be obviously some stuff in here that might be sensitive, but this is our email inbox. Again, this one here, we've had an inquiry come in and there's been questions to me about who, so I've said, she said, who's going to deal with it? I said, I'll deal with it. So she's gone back to it, blah, 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 blah.
When you say, sorry, Joe, when you say email inbox.
Yeah. So I don't use Outlook at all.
Right.
for example, right, obviously Gmail or whatever you use, I don't use, so the app, I don't even have the Outlook app down here because I don't use it.
Right.
Every single email comes through into Karbon, and go on, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so this is everybody's inboxes, or this is
No, this is just mine. So yeah, so this is just mine. So for example, it's so hard to do this in the time that we've got, because there's so much to talk about. But for example,
let's do this, Joe, like, because sessions like this I find are so valuable, and like, let's not rush this to get it finished in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
What I suggest we do is, if we need to go 5 or 10 minutes over, then let's do that. And if people need to jump off the call because of the time restraints, we're recording it, so we'll send it out to everybody.
Send it out.
Right?
Yeah,
so
perfect.
This is such a great session, so let's not rush.
Yeah, perfect.
Let's take your time. We can go 5 or 10 minutes over if we need to.
Okay, cool, thanks. So let's just say, so if I was to press this button here, this is going to refresh my, I hope nothing bad comes up. This is where I then refresh my inbox. So these are the emails that have come into me, okay? So for example, let's just say I need to deal with this one here, right? So Amy has invited me to a pod on Connect 4 for a meeting. So I need to deal with that by joining that pod. So what I can now do from this screen is I can do a few different things. I can speak to Amy on here by doing the app comments we talked about a minute ago. I can reply to her directly on email, which we try not to do because we try to use the comments. I can assign it to a work item. So if we've got a particular job that this is for, I can assign it to that. I can assign it to a client. So this is for one called Equine Register. I could assign it to them if I wanted to. What I can also do is then assign that to a to-do list. So I can assign that to me, or I could say, actually, that's for Leanne, and assign it to Leanne, but let's assign it to me. And I need to do that today. I need to action that today. And therefore the due date is today. And I could write a little comment saying, join pod and let Amy know, or whatever. And then I can assign. And now what that's going to do now, by pressing assign and clear, that's going to leave my inbox completely. So now all of a sudden, as you'll see, I haven't got that many really in my inbox to compare to what probably a lot of people have if they're using Outlook and stuff. Because what I've done is I've said, I now want that to sit on my to-do list. So on my to-do list now for today, you'll see I've got this here, which I've added on, which is what we just talked about. So on my to-do list due today, here's the email that Amy had sent to me. Here's the fact that I put a comment on there saying, join the pod and let Amy know. So if I've joined that pod, I can, and done what I need to do, I can just tick that off and it goes off my to-do list completely. So what that has then obviously allowed me to do is to clear my inbox. So every day we ask our staff to clear their triage. So this screen here would be completely clear. They'd have nothing in there because it would all either be assigned to somebody else, assigned to themselves, or they'd have responded to it and got rid of it anyway. So that is one of the factors. Another factor, for example, here, so this is a new client. So again, we've set up a work template, which I'll quickly show in a second, that talks us through how to deal with a new client. So because that call, which has been cancelled now, but because that call was supposed to be today, that's been set to drop in my inbox for today. So I've now got in my to-do list today, I've got these questions that I need to talk to this guy about when I speak to him on the phone. So it's just adding those extra things. But also obviously if it's due next month, it will come on here. If it's due this month, it will look on here as well. So there's lots of different views and screens and whatnot. Then I can also, if I wanted to, I could look at somebody else's. So say I wanted to look at Rebecca's to-do list, I could come onto here and I could say, right, what's Rebecca got on today? Okay, she's got on this maternity allowance here. I need to make sure she's done that, or whatever. So you can also look at other people's to-do lists. So that's kind of like, and Miranda, if there's anything else you want me to show on the like triage bit, if you're happy to say, for example, like that's a spam email because I don't use Sage, I can literally just get rid of it. So if I this tick here, which you probably didn't see, basically will clear it from my inbox. So then it's gone. So literally within 2 seconds, I've got rid of it. I don't have to think about clearing my deleted items and all that sort of stuff. This one here, for example, this is quite cool actually, because I'm doing my work while I'm on it. this one here is someone that someone else needs to pick up. So I'm going to tag that to that guy and say, please download invoice. And then I'm going to post that. And then he's going to get that and he'll action that and I can get rid of it. So you see how quickly I can get through my inbox compared to how I would do normally trying to forward emails and blah, 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 blah. So that's that side of it. So I'll take a deep breath.
And thanks so much for that. And are your team using it in the same way as you?
Yeah. So we're all using it. Before we came on this call, I was trying to find a really long conversation between like 3 or 4 different people, but I couldn't find one easily. So we are using it. Like everybody uses it in exactly the same way. Some people are a bit more wedded to Outlook, so some people still have Outlook in the background. But ultimately, it's all done through here. And just going back to like if we've got, I don't know if I've got any on here. If there was an here, this one. So if there's an attachment on it, you can still open like that attachment will download. And then I can just open that attachment as I would in a normal way, and there it is. So so all your inbox, in my eyes, I don't know why you would need Outlook because all your inbox is here. So then, like moving on now to the work templates. So this for me is like maybe not the biggest feature, but one of the best features that the system does have, because this is where the automation comes in and where you can save so much time and actually standardize your processes. That was one of the biggest problems we had, was like we didn't have a standardized process because we'd kind of started from scratch, and it was me and then me and a couple of others and blah, blah, blah. We had a pile of paperwork and we just got through the pile of paperwork as quickly as we could and whatnot. So for us to come in now and create templates was like how we automate what we do. And we've taken this to a next level this year as well, and I'll show you that. So as you can see, we've got a lot of templates in here. They're not all used all the time, but for example, going back to that prospect we just talked about. So this is our prospect template. So as soon as the lead comes in, so when the status of the work has been set to initial lead, it will then trigger some automations to set this task here to be due 0 days, so basically the same day. So as soon as that's created, Amy, who this is here, will get a notification in her to-do list to send this basic email. She's got some documents to send, so we've added those documents in, and she's got a form that she needs to send, so she can copy that link and send that link. So she can open up any of these documents, for example, and she can see them, but also she's got them here to download and send straight away. So there's no kind of issue with what she sends. So it's, again, complete, everyone gets the same. Then once that's happened, so when everything's been ticked up here, we've got an automator that says change. So when that one's been changed to completed, by ticking that, change the due date of the task in this section to 0. So then she needs to then send out a confirmation email to say thank you for booking and blah, 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 blah. Then once that's been completed, it will then trigger these into my inbox. At the moment, it says 0 days because we don't know when that meeting is going to be. So we've just set it to do 0 days. But what I can then do, or Amy can then do, is come in and change that due date in here to the particular day that the meeting's being held on. And then we've got some, and this stuff here is mainly for the team rather than me, but obviously we all try and use the same thing. So we've just got some questions. What's your business? And everything we do, as you can probably see from this, is like, we don't even talk about us until here. All of this up here is, tell us about you. What software have you got? What's your budget? What timescales you're working on? Are you the decision maker? That's another thing that so many people forget. And we speak to so many people and they go, yeah, I'll have to go speak to my boss. And then eventually the boss says, no, you spent hours and hours and hours on it. Again, what brought you here today? Pain points, what brings you here? And these are just basics. I'm sure people have got much better systems. And then what are their pain points? So here are all these, kind of trigger points. Do they want to reduce the tax bill, or do they want to manage their tax efficient? Do they want more KPIs and whatnot? And then as that goes down, we then work out, are we a fit for them? Are we the right customer? Are they the right customer for us? That's a really important trigger in there. And there's some documents in here as to tailor the section to the answers to the above questions and pain points to ensure hitting the exact issues that the prospect have. And here are some documents that might be useful for the person on the sales call at that point. Anyway, then we've got some more bits, are they registered, has things been filed? Because again, we take clients on and then they'd go, oh, by the way, I haven't filed VAT returns for 3 years. And then you'd be like, brilliant. So we're just making sure that we ask some of those questions, closing questions, book another call, how to proceed. And then we start to come down, right, now that's happened. It goes to Amy's to-do list to draft and send the proposal. When that's happened, we then follow up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another thing we've added at the end, book a meeting with Julie and Leanne. So Julie's our practice manager, Leanne's our marketing business development person, but also heads up our accounting guys. We'd win the work and then it would come from winning the work straight into the team. Whereas these guys now need to sit in the middle and go, hang on a second, we need to see where it's at, see who's got capacity, et cetera, et cetera. So then it goes through to them. So that's one example. I won't go through the rest with any detail, but we've got accounts. I'll come back to that one. We've got annual accounts. So again, we've got stuff in here. So this is what we talked about a minute ago about client tasks being sent out. So this is an automated client task. So we've set this and it basically will say, please attach the following information so we can complete your annual accounts. You can also add comments to each task should you wish. So this has got a setting to send as soon as we start the work, it will automatically send out this 0 days after the start date. And these are the questions that they'll have. Please add your bank statements. So then they can come in here and add in their bank statements as attachments. Client contact checklist. We talked about this. We had the we had the issue with the the communication piece. So we put in a section here to say this is a courtesy call to advise you you've got a checklist and blah 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 blah. Again, days after that, if they haven't heard. Complete bookkeeping, so that's an internal one. If we need any additional documentation once we've had the bookkeeping completed, we can then say we need documentation, we need clarification. Again, we can send that out to the client from here. And then it's then internal. We need to complete the work papers, and we use Notion. So there's a link in here to Notion. I don't know if this will work. Yes, it will. So this will go straight through to the Notion page, which will tell them how to do the particular task with a little video at the end on how to do that. Like I say, how to do that task. So in that one, it was setting up a work paper. So if we had to draft in a temp or whatever to help out, we've got it all. This is why we wanted it all systemized. So again, there's one of those for all of these. Upload and use tax calc, review. Again, we then send at the end, we send the client an email so they have a copy. And with, if I then jump out of that and jump into like CIS, for example, at the bottom, we attach here, please find attach your CIS balance as well as your subcontractor statements for the period. So we stick the attachments into here and we send that out as a client task. So basically they have to tick that client task to confirm that they receive that documentation. So they can't say, we've never had our subcontractor statements. And we can say, yeah, you have because you ticked off the task. So again, it's just that audit trail, if you like, that people are doing what they say they're going to do. And then also, again, just quickly, we introduced an accounts review. So again, whoever reviews, obviously it needs to be someone competent to review, but whoever they are, we've got a particular scorecard, which is attached. So here, there's a review scorecard, which is attached as a document. And then there's a review checklist down here, quite long. So that's kind of like the work templates.
And Joe, I'm guessing you guys have gone in and set these all up, right?
Yes and no. So like some of like the review one I just went on, like, yes, we've gone in and set that up because it's really specific to us. So by the time we've written it down on a spreadsheet or whatever and sent it to Karbon to do it, we may as well have just created it. So we've created that ourselves, but what Karbon will then go and do. So for example, we changed our annual accounts templates recently to include those Notion links in the last couple of months. And that affected obviously all of our clients, because what we've also got, if I go into the guy that won't mind, we've got, so let's go to this one. This is a repeating work template. So this will go out every year on the 1st of the month that's relevant. So this starts on the 1st of July and then every year on the 1st of July, it will go out, to be created, if you like. So because we had all these in the background already ready to kind of be renewed as the time came, Karbon went in the background, again, where the support comes in, and they updated all of our repeating works to be the new template rather than the old template. Because that was one of the big problems we had, was if we do all of this and then we want to make a change, it's a huge pain to then go and have to change everything. But Karbon have been amazing in that, they've got a particular template that they'll send you, you update the template, and then they'll update the system. So yeah, it is, once we've done it, it is kind of like changed. You can change it after. And just quickly, while I'm on this client that we talked about, so we talked about the timeline really briefly. So everything that's tagged to this client goes on their timeline, as you can see all on here. So we can always go back and see, Julie here has said, she's done X, Y, and Z. There's comments, as you can see, but also importantly, that note. Now let's just say that note's really, really important, and we don't want it to fall down the timeline. We can also pin that note to the top. So that will always stay at the top. So that might be some information that you don't want to not have about that client, or you want to see it every time. So you can pin that to the top. And then lastly, on this screen, let me just see. If I can get, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get what I want. Oh yeah, we've got it here. So we've also got the accounting data. So in here, you can see their registration number, their UTR, their legal name, their financial year end, etc., etc. And you can add in directors. And so there's lots of, all that static data can also be kept in the system. In there, we've got an authentication code because there's no preset section for that within Karbon. So we've just added it in the description. So we can always get to the data that we need to get to. So that's like work, timeline, etc. This is an example of a checklist being sent out. So this has gone out for VAT return, and it said, please ensure that all your paperwork has been passed to us or is on receipt bank. He's not ticked that one off, but again, we can see who's ticked off what and who they haven't. Yeah, I feel like I should stop talking for a minute. Do we have any questions or?
Yeah, we do actually. So thanks for popping these in, guys. So first question from Neil is, what accounts, production and tax systems does Karbon link to? And what are you using, Joe?
So it doesn't link to, so we use TaxCalc,
right? And
it doesn't link to TaxCalc. But again, we don't need it to. Yes, it could create the client for us in TaxCalc, but because we literally use TaxCalc to file the accounts, we just put basic data in there anyway. The stuff that we need for the accounts, and that's it. So we do all our prep work obviously in Xero, and then take it out of Xero and put it into TaxCalc. So we don't need it to, but I don't know if it integrates with any others. Miranda.
No, and that's one of the things that I've been brought on to Karbon for, is because just for those that are on here, the clients that we have in the UK, it's been a very organic, and Joe has been part of that journey with us. And so now it's time for us, to come on board. And one of my jobs is to understand what else do we need to look at, what additional features, enhancements do we need to make to Karbon to make sure we're supporting the UK, and also other integrations that are going to obviously take some of those painful manual uploads or that disconnect that's happening. But I will come back to what Joe said before, is, why do you want something to integrate? What really is it going to give to you, and what's it going to do for you, before you think that you have to have everything that you've got around you integrated to one system.
Thanks, Miranda. Adele has asked Joe around work papers.
Yeah, is a specific question?
It actually says, are you using my work papers?
No, they just spam me with their email. If you saw that on my email thing, okay. We use Xero work papers. It's not the best in the world, but it does the job that we need it to do. We've made it work. We've made the process work. We've made the system work, etc. So yeah, we use Xero work papers.
Okay, great. And Adele has asked, is there a calendar in Karbon?
Miranda?
I thought you might handball that one to me. As of today, no, but we are at this point in time in development and working on our calendar. I have seen the first drafts of that we're playing about with, and it looks pretty cool. I cannot give you an ETA of when it's going to be released, but it is on its way. I promise you, I've seen it.
We've been pestering on that one for a while, so
yeah. Yeah, so I'm hoping it's this half of this year, but yeah, you know what happens with development, something happens, a bug happens, and then sets us back a bit. So just keep an eye on it. We do release every 3 weeks, and if you go to our website, you'll be able to see all our releases coming up. However, if you're in our system and it's something that you're looking at and there's a decision of why you might move to Karbon, we'll keep you posted on anything that gets released for you.
Okay, brilliant. Joe, or Miranda, can we bulk assign tasks from triage?
When you say bulk, do you mean like if I was in triage, could I say that, and that? If you do, yeah, if you do, then the short answer is no, because there's no way of clicking multiple on here. So I would have to go in and I would have to manually assign each one. And that might sound onerous if you've got 100 emails in your inbox, but believe me, once you start using Karbon, you won't have 100 emails in your inbox. And therefore this would take me literally a minute to go down and do what I need to do. It's not assuming I'm not like replying to a really long email. Like if I just had to assign this or do something with this, that would literally take me minutes to go down.
Okay. And Iraj has asked, does it have business advisory meetings and service procedures to be done in a structured way? I'm guessing that would potentially be how you structure a kind of business advisory meeting. I'm guessing we could build a work template for that, right?
Precisely that, yeah. So we've got, where are we? Some of these are standard ones that Karbon added that we don't always use. So where is there's a clarity one here somewhere, probably under C. There. So like this, again, we haven't used this loads, but again, this is like a system that we were rolling out for a little bit. We were looking at clarity, basically getting a team to look at clients and try and do a bit of a triage on their clients and understand who needs what, where, and how, and to try and get them to do some bits and pieces. So this was a particular process that we went through for the team. When I do business advisory and when Drew, who's our management accountant, does business advisory, we're a bit more freeform. I like to be quite, as you can probably tell by this call, a little bit jumping all over the place sometimes, but yeah, you can do it. You just, again, it all comes down to spending the time. Like if you want to spend the time and do that, you can. Like the work templates are here. Like you can just create one, and all of a sudden we've now got a blank template. And we can start adding sections. We can start adding client sections. We can move things around. If we don't like that there, we want that there. So we can do whatever we want. It's just a case of spending the time and doing it. Yeah.
Joe, did you have anything else planned that you wanted to show us at all?
I mean, it depends on whether people want to hear it or not. I wanted to just quickly show the work Kanban screens because I think that's quite important. But I also just wanted to, and I'll really quickly touch on this. I wanted to really quickly touch on time. I know time is a bit of a touchy subject for some accountants and a dirty word for some people. And so our position on time is that we want to make sure that we're billing the right amount to our clients. So we have packages based on the service level they receive. We're not really transactional pricing. We're more service value pricing, and we're subscription based effectively. So you can pick up and drop it whenever you want. So in order to do that, we just want to make sure that we're kind of like recovering what we can recover. And when it comes to fee reviews, how much easier is a fee review conversation if we need to move them up a package and we say, look, guys, we've been doing your bookkeeping monthly, and we said that we do it quarterly, so we do need to bump you up a package. Here's the timesheets to show that. For me, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that, but I do understand that some people don't. So I just wanted to show that you can do it within Karbon. You can track it against the work or against the contact. You can assign a role. So we've got roles for each. So for example, I'm under managing director, so I've got a particular value associated to that in the background. Leanne's under business development manager. She's got a value. Our bookkeepers have got a value, et cetera, et cetera. So they choose who they are and then they assign it to that. And then what that will then do as part of an approved timesheet, have I got one in here? I'm rubbish at tracking my time, by the way. But what I wanted to show you, which will be in here, if it ever loads. This is my internet, not Karbon. I hope, for Miranda's sake. Right, so what this will allow me to do is just click into it, and you can see that I've put some time in there and what I've done to that piece of work. But also key down here, will give you some suggested time entries. So if you've been working on, so for example, this one here, I commented on a note. So that is then, sorry, that's basically then saying you commented on a note. So do you want to track some time against that? Here, you completed a task and you commented on the task. Do you want to track some time against that? So it's really, you know, this one here, again, I commented on an email. So I could say, look, I just literally commented internally. I'm not going to track that. However, this one here, I actually did some reviewing. So I'm going to say, yeah, I did some reviewing and I spent 15 minutes doing it, review, for example. And that will then add. So it's a great way if you've missed stuff, and I always miss stuff because I'm flitting about doing 15 million different things. That's a great way to do it. I'll move on from that. So just lastly, I just really want to show, and I will be really quick with these because they won't mean a great deal. I'll just show you a few different ones. So I've anonymized them, so these are the things that look a bit scruffy. So so this is like your work Kanban template. So you can have this in a list view as well if you want. So basically this is, I've set a filter on the work screen to say, I want to see the future capacity across my team. So I want to see everything that these guys have got due within the next 90 days. So that has now shown me that I've got 76 things I need to do. Julie's only got 3, for example. Now, Julie's not client facing, so that would explain. But you know, these two are client facing. So why has Leah got 135 and why has Leanne got 270? You know, these two, Joshua and Oliver, are in the same role. They're both apprentice bookkeepers. Why has Oliver got 55 and Joshua 72? Is Joshua being slow? You know, is he not kind of caught up yet? Has Oliver ticked things off too quickly? Do we need to just double check what he's doing? You know, that sort of stuff. But also when the work comes in, who can I give it to? Probably shouldn't give it to Leanne. I should probably give it to Leah, based on that as an example. You can run it for your own work. So this is my work. So what have I got overdue? These things here. I've got nothing work-wise due today, nothing work-wise due this week, and nothing work-wise due next week. Many don't do any work. And then I've got some due this month and some due next month. As an example, again, you can change that to whoever you want. So I could look at Leanne, I could look at Leah, I could look at Joshua, whatever, by just changing the assignee. And then I wanted to show this quickly. I've taken everything out of it. And this is a basic, like we created our own sales pipeline within Karbon just because we didn't want to pay for another system. So in here, we've basically said that when it comes in, it will drop into initial lead and we can move it along our sales pipeline. It goes further than that, but it didn't fit on the screenshot, as that goes on through the process. And then finally, just this one I wanted to show you because I thought this is really simple, but I really like it. And it's basically, as it says here, it's work that we're waiting on. So basically, we're always, as accountants, you know, we're always sat there going, this work, I've done it, but it's not done, as in like, it's not been filed, it's not been this, not been that. So we've got a really simple board that says, right, where is it? So this is all the work that we're waiting on right now. There's 47 work items that we're waiting on. 24 of those are waiting on the client. So again, we now know we need to follow those up. 13 of those have been sent for signing, but they haven't been back yet. So again, we should follow them up and ask them why they haven't signed. Is there anything they need to go through? And then 10 of them are in for internal review. So again, we can then go internally and say, right, these are in for review. Why haven't they been reviewed, et cetera, et cetera. But again, if a client rings you up and says, where's my work at? You can easily see where it's at. Oh, you haven't actually signed it. Oh, okay, that's strange. I'll get it resent to you, or, you know, whatever. So again, a really simple board, but all of these are, and I'll just quickly again jump into Karbon. All of these are completely like, you can create this whenever you, so this is my work, but if I want to say, I want to look at where, you know, Leanne is involved as well, I can add her in. And if I want to say it's a due date for the next month, then I can look at that. And then if I want to say I want the status to be information received, probably nothing will come up now. But yeah, do you see what I mean? You can add in as many filters you can, and then you just need to say, I want to save that as random work and then all of a sudden you've got a new board with the random work, and you can then click into that whenever you want. So yeah, that's kind of like my whistle stop rabble tour for Karbon. I should work with you guys, shouldn't I?
That was really good.
Very
Thank
good.
you so much for like putting the time into getting it all ready for us, and providing some insight into how you put Karbon set up in the practice. Yeah, really appreciate it, and I'm sure Miranda does as well on the team at Karbon.
Certainly do. It's nice to see someone else showing it for a change.
Yeah, great job, Joe. Really great job.
Good. Yeah,
thank you to everyone who's kind of still on the call with us. Apologies for kind of running 10 minutes over. It's not very often that we can get someone like Joe to kind of show us into a product and show how Joe has it set up in his practice. So I thought it was worth kind of going over 10 or 15 minutes, and if people had to shoot off, then they had to shoot off. So yeah, thanks.
Anyone that's still here deserves a prize.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. They do.
Anyone that can listen to me rabble on for that long
Yeah,
deserves a prize.
I'll think about what we can do. But thanks, Miranda. Thank you.
Thanks.
Joe. Thanks everyone who's still on the call just now.
Thanks, Joe.
On there.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks everyone. Appreciate your time, and stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up with you all very soon.
Brilliant.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Joe.
So yeah, take care.
Thanks.
Bye.